The Ash Ledger, Part 4. A historical fiction story for a USA audience. Some stories are buried because they are false. Others are buried because they are true. On a quiet autumn evening in Washington, D.C., when the city's monuments glow softly and the streets finally exhale after a long day of power and performance, there is a moment, brief and easily missed, when the Capitol feels older than the nation itself, older than the Republic, older than memory. It is in that moment, historians say, that the past leans forward and listens. This story begins in one of those moments. By the early years of the 20th century, America believed it had mastered its own history. The Civil War had been categorized, archived, and explained. Reconstruction had been framed as failure or necessity, depending on who was writing. The country moved forward with factories, railroads, banks, and empires. What mattered, people believed, was progress. What few understood was that progress was being watched. Long before the term deep state ever entered political language, long before intelligence agencies were formalized, long before secrets were digitized and encrypted, there existed a quieter mechanism of power, one that did not rule, did not command, but recorded. It observed the nation not as it claimed to be, but as it truly was. Eleanor Whitmore had been its most important witness. Her death in 1902 was recorded in a single line of a municipal ledger. No obituary appeared in major newspapers. No government office acknowledged her passing. To the outside world, she was a nameless elderly woman who died peacefully in her home. But the night she died, something shifted beneath Washington. Construction records from the first decade of the 1900s show an unusual pattern. Sudden halts, unexplained delays, entire crews reassigned without explanation. Private journals from laborers mention sealed doors and corridors that had not been there the day before. Officially, these inconsistencies were blamed on outdated maps. Unofficially, they were blamed on fear. The journals Eleanor left behind, or rather the absence of them, created a vacuum. And vacuums, in history, are dangerous things. In 1907, 4 years after her death, a junior clerk in the newly reorganized Department of War discovered a discrepancy while reviewing Civil War-era records. Entire correspondence chains referenced documents that did not exist. Names were redacted from files that should not have been classified. Cross-references led to nothing. When he reported the issue, his supervisor quietly advised him to drop the matter. "This country survives because some things are not connected," the supervisor said. The clerk obeyed, but he kept copies. Those copies vanished within a week. This pattern repeated itself again and again over the coming decades, always the same structure: curiosity, discovery, silence. Sometimes followed by promotion, sometimes by transfer, sometimes by sudden illness, always by disappearance of evidence. By the 1920s, whispers of an underground archive had become a kind of professional superstition among engineers and archivists in Washington. It was spoken of only in private, and always with the same symbol traced absent-mindedly on tabletops or notepads: a broken circle. No one remembered where the symbol came from. No one needed to. In 1939, as the world edged toward another war, a confidential memorandum circulated briefly within the Office of Strategic Services. It proposed a study into pre-existing intelligence networks that may have influenced internal security prior to formal agency creation. The memo cited unexplained continuity in counterespionage outcomes dating back to the Civil War. The study was never approved. The memo was never found again. Yet the war came and went, and America emerged as a global power, its secrets multiplying, its influence expanding. And still, beneath the city, something remained unchanged. In 1954, during renovations beneath the Capitol Visitor Area, workers encountered an iron door embedded in brick older than the surrounding structure. There were no hinges, no lock, no way to open it. Etched faintly at its center was a symbol that no one could quite explain. A circle, fractured, as if scattered by ash. An architect on site later recalled feeling an overwhelming pressure standing before it, as though the door did not separate spaces, but eras. The door was sealed behind a new wall. The symbol was sanded down. That same year, senatorial records show a quiet investigation into several political figures whose private correspondence suggested coordinated disloyalty to national interests. The investigation collapsed without explanation. Careers were ruined. Others were spared without reason. The pattern was invisible to the public, but not to everyone. In 1968, amid protests and assassinations, a classified internal report reached the desk of a mid-level intelligence analyst. The report compared political instability across a century of American history and identified a recurring anomaly, moments of national crisis that resolved not through public action, but through sudden internal shifts, resignations, confessions, scandals that surfaced without clear sources. At the bottom of the report was a handwritten note added by someone unknown. History self-corrects when observed. The analyst never learned who wrote it. He did, however, find something else, an unsigned document delivered through secure channels. It contained no letterhead, no classification markings, only names, dates, relationships. Some names were already public, others would not be for decades. At the bottom of the page was a symbol he had never seen before, but somehow recognized instantly: the circle of ash. The analyst burned the document and requested a transfer. By the late 20th century, the legend of Eleanor Whitmore had been reduced to fragments, footnotes without sources, rumors without proof. A woman with an exceptional memory, a clerk who knew too much, a ghost woven into the mythology of Washington's unseen corridors. What survived was not her biography, but her function. She had not been the origin of the Ash Ledger. She had been its bridge. The ledger itself, whether physical or conceptual, appeared to operate beyond individuals. Its purpose was neither justice nor revenge. It did not prevent betrayal. It recorded it. It preserved truth when institutions could not. And once truth was preserved, history had a way of enforcing consequences. In 1981, after a shocking political scandal rocked the nation, an anonymous package was delivered to a secure government office. Inside was a single page detailing connections that had not yet been discovered publicly. Every detail later proved accurate. The page ended with a sentence written in deliberate, archaic prose: "The balance endures." No investigation ever identified the sender. The page was classified, copied, misplaced, rediscovered, and ultimately sealed. By the early 2000s, Washington had become a city layered with technology, cameras, sensors, surveillance systems watching every corner. And yet, paradoxically, reports of unexplained phenomena beneath the city increased. Equipment malfunctioned. Digital maps contradicted physical reality. Security cameras failed in specific underground locations. A private contractor once claimed that certain tunnels did not appear on any modern scan, but were undeniably present. He lost the contract. And then came the 21st century's greatest irony, an age obsessed with information, yet overwhelmed by it. Truth buried not by secrecy, but by noise. Unsigned reports continued to surface, sometimes in government offices, sometimes in academic circles, sometimes in the hands of journalists who dismissed them as elaborate hoaxes. Each carried the same mark. Each demonstrated impossible continuity, and each suggested that the ledger was still being written. If Eleanor Whitmore were alive today, she might not recognize the city above her, but she would recognize its rhythm, the tension between what is said and what is known, between power and accountability. She would understand that her role had never been to decide history, only to remember it faithfully until memory could be passed on. Because that is the secret buried beneath Washington, D.C. Not that America was controlled from the shadows, but that it was watched, observed patiently, measured against its own ideals, and corrected, not by force, but by exposure. Somewhere beneath the streets, in corridors no map will ever admit exist, a ledger may still rest on a stand, its pages thick with names written and names yet to come, its ink neither ancient nor modern, but deliberate. And if the faint scrape of a pen can still be heard late at night near the Capitol, it is not a threat, it is a reminder that history is not only written by the victors. Sometimes it is written by those who never wanted to be remembered at all. And somewhere in that unseen archive, the name Eleanor Whitmore remains, not as a footnote, but as a turning point. Because some secrets do not sleep, they wait.